This is the Sunshine Cathedral perspective. Queer God Squad discusses the assassination of a gay saint and his lover. Queer theologian and historian Kittridge Cherry shares information about queer heroes and saints and martyrs that most people haven't heard of or who have heard but didn't know about their queerness. An example of little-known queer sacred history is the love between Saint Boris and his servant George. Simon Karlinsky has highlighted their love story in his analysis of the medieval classic, The Legend of Boris and Gleb, compiled in the 11th century. Karlinsky writes, and I'm quoting, "Boris had a gold necklace made for George because it was said Boris loved him beyond measure. When four assailants stabbed Boris, George flung himself on the body of his prince, exclaiming, 'I will not be left behind, my precious lord. Ere the beauty of thy body begins to wilt, let it be granted that my life may end.'" Wow. The assailants tore Boris out of George's embrace, stabbed George, and flung him out of the tent, bleeding and dying. Before Boris died, he forgave his assassins. Prince Boris was killed by a brother trying to usurp power, but it is believed George was murdered for his open admission of the nature of their love. Queer God Squad, let's bite into this juicy story. I copied down a couple of things. It's one of those both and stories. The saint was killed because he had a brother who wanted to kill him, I mentioned in the story. But he also killed a second brother. Gleb was the second brother who was killed. So George was just one of the three people who were killed that day. And George, almost specifically because he was in love with the saint. Now, we didn't hear much about George for almost 800-900 years because it just wasn't talked about. Then a lexicographer, can I say the word ionographer? One who draws ions?
Iconographer.
Iconographer.
Thank you. An iconographer.
And icons are written. They're not drawn.
Well, this was an iconographer who actually drew.
No, but they write icons.
Oh, so who did the drawing?
The iconographer. They write.
Oh.
They write it. They write it. It's
This lesson is brought to you by Bishop Darrell Watkins. That's why I work with this man.
What we would call a drawing. That's writing the icon because it's a story.
So, again, in the year 2000, this happened where the two were put back together, and this is not a story that's new. It's a love story between two men of different walks in life. We, at this table, have in the past talked about Jonathan and David, and whether David loved Jonathan or not, we know Jonathan loved David. He just loved him so much. And the other story that I often share is the centurion and his quote-unquote slave. We have to understand the dynamics of the relationships, and you don't have a slave and go over to Jesus and say, "Jesus, please save my slave." It's somebody that you have a feeling for. So this goes back, way back, where people fall in love, live with each other in a loving relationship that sometimes we don't hear about until long after, and we start having conversations about what's behind the words. We take sacred texts at our church and we bring them to life, we bring them to reality, we give them that sniff test. What is this story really about? Who are the people in this, and what was their relationship really like? And I think that with this relationship, we can clearly see that it was a loving relationship. I mean, I don't know that I would throw my body in front of a whole lot of things to save a lover, but George did. So kudos to George.
It does also show that queer love is subversive. It's threatening. People are killed for it. Why is it that just your existence, especially if you will affirm it, if you'll name it, is so threatening to power structures and to the status quo? And so this has always been the case, that this isn't a warrior. He just is in a panic because someone he loves is in trouble, is dying. And he just throws himself on, to comfort him, to protect him, to be with him at the end, whatever he can do, like you would someone you were in love with. And that was so offensive that he had to be killed. No threat to anybody, apparently not even armed, not a warrior, but had to be killed. That is how powerful and how subversive queer love is, and still is. And so sometimes we underestimate our power. It is threatening to the status quo. It is threatening to oppressive systems. And so that's why the more we come out, yes, it involves some risk, but it also involves some empowerment. And it can put people on the run. The thing about the icon, by the way, the more contemporary one that he showed, that was obviously done recently and was beautiful, but that old one that looked like, a cave drawing almost. The prince was bearded, and George was not. He had long hair, soft features, no beard. That is an old artist trick of letting you in on a secret.
Oh.
That the person, that your companion is feminized. You'll notice in a lot of paintings of the Last Supper, John looks like a teenage boy almost, or a little girl, sitting next to the bearded Jesus. What's that about? And so, yeah, that he is bearded and that his companion isn't, tells you the sort of relationship, that it's the sort of relationship as a man and a woman would have. Oh. That's why they feminize one of the companions, and that's to let you know what at least the artist thought was happening in that person's life. Another thing is, if you see people at someone's knees or at their feet, those are very intimate and submissive positions, so they can represent genitalia. So there's all kinds of little hints in ancient art about what's going on. And so that we saw bearded warrior prince and softer, who takes the same risk and suffers the same fate, but lets you know what they were about as people.
I'm loving this. Thank you.
And if you want to learn something really fabulous about iconography and what it means and how we can interpret it, check out Sunshine Cathedral, particularly Bishop Durrell.
Talk about anything.
Now, I love this story because it's a good reminder that we are everywhere.
Yeah.
And I love it when we find ourselves in history, and this was done in the 11th century. And I like how Reverend Kevin points out, they were reunited back in 2000. It's like, that's kind of a powerful love story. It's like, yeah, we may have lost each other in death and the way it happened, brother rivalry and all that kind of stuff. And, I throw myself on and I'm killed at the same time as I'm thrown out the tent. But then to be reunited in art forever, and that's a good reminder that we were there, we are there, and we find ourselves through how Bishop Watkins talks about all the meaning in the artwork also, and what to look for and how it all works out. I just love that we're there.
Yeah.
You can't erase us. We're there.
Yep.
And making the profound statements of love, of togetherness, and life and in death was still there, and you can't take that away from our community.
Yep.